Welcome to the Courage and Cannabis Show, where we bring you the insightful conversations with the authors of the #1 best-selling books, Courage and Cannabis. I'm your host, Candy Flores, and today we're diving into the pages of Courage and Cannabis, Volume 2, with one of the authors from the Toking Teacher and her chapter. Wait till you hear about her.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Bronwyn. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, Candy?
I'm doing good, thank you. But before we embark on this literary journey, a quick shout out to our sponsors of the book series who help make this podcast possible. Compass Naturals, Endovibe Cannabis Centers, Spender, The Canna Mom Show, Blev 614 Network, Cannabis BPO, Columbus Botanical Depot, Daga Digital Marketing, Hempbox, etc., Ohio Medical Marijuana Physicians Association, DustinCava.com with web development. Remember, Courage and Cannabis book series is a project of the Growth, Harmony, and Happiness Community Foundation, 501c3 nonprofit. You can learn more about each of or these on Courage and Cannabis. Now let's get started. Your chapter, Bronwyn. Tell us a little bit about it.
My chapter is about my experience in losing my teaching license or having it suspended for about 5 years for possession of medical cannabis pursuant to a prescription. Um, so that's the very, very short, condensed version of my chapter. Um, but
So
do
you
you
were a
want a little
teacher
more
there
deep?
in your state? You
Yes,
were a teacher
I was a fourth
in
grade
Ohio?
teacher in
Okay.
Ohio. I taught English language arts and science, and also licensed in gifted education. So, the really smart kids. I was a gifted kid myself.
I was
And
about
I
to
was
say, I
kind of,
know you're gifted as well.
yeah. So I always kind of jived with those kids, and I had my licensure in that as well. I taught for 13 years. And it was right after COVID. I mean, COVID was still kind of going on. It was October of 2020. We had went back to school, and I was going to a doctor's appointment after school and had taken a dab pen with me with a small amount of dab and it concentrate to use right before my adjustment because it always helps me loosen up before an adjustment.
Right.
And it leaked in my purse, and I was found and
Wow.
ended up losing my license. So it's
Wow.
been an adjustment, but that's basically what my chapter is about, is what that was like and what it's been like.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing a little about your chapter. I know that that's, a big step, and we appreciate you sharing that with us and our audience and all our readers out there. What inspired you to write about this topic? Because I'm sure that was something that you were dealing with. Well, first of all, when did this happen? Was it right before you wrote your story, or
Well,
what
I
year
wrote
was
my
it?
story about a year ago, right?
Hmm.
So I wrote my story in 23. This happened in October of 2020.
Okay.
So it was still pretty fresh, but
Hmm.
I felt like I had moved on. Uh, but what inspired me to write it is I think more people need to tell their stories and what's happening out there in the real world. I was a very dedicated teacher and I loved my kids with all of my heart and soul. I'm still in communication with some of them who are now adults.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I loved what I did. And to lose it to cannabis is ridiculous. So, part of it was they kept trying to convince me that I should quit cannabis. And I'm like, but you don't understand. I have these ailments, and the list is long. And
Hmm.
I also have a history of addiction. I'm coming up on 7 years sober from alcohol in June, on June
Mm,
16th, to be
awesome.
precise. And
Great
uh,
job.
I got diagnosed with chronic pain, and they wanted to put me on pain medication. And I knew that wasn't my journey, and I knew cannabis was. So, what was I supposed to do for pain
Hmm.
if I quit
Right.
cannabis? What was I
That's
supposed to do? And that
yeah,
needs to be normalized. The cannabis is a
absolutely.
safe and
Yes.
acceptable alternative for everyone.
and it's not you're not addicting. That's the
Exactly.
great, right.
Exactly. Right.
No sex and yeah.
Yeah. I wake up in the morning. I remember what I did the night before. I'm
Mhm.
not over. I'm not shaking worse than I normally do. So, yeah, cannabis is the way to go. I'm not craving it. I'm not trying to rob people to get more. I'm not uh, lying to my husband about it. None of those things are happening like with
Absolutely
alcohol.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
very inspiring. What were some of the most surprising discoveries or insights you encountered during the writing process? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy. And I know myself, when you're writing, you relive those emotions.
Yeah. Writing. Hmm. I thought when I took on this endeavor to write my chapter, I was like, well, this is easy. This is my story. I'm a gifted writer. It's always come easily. I can just write it down. And then a couple meltdowns later, and feeling all of those feelings all over again, and the hopelessness and the shame and the embarrassment. And do I want my previous students to know that I use cannabis? And then why should I be ashamed of that? And just kind of really diving into how I really truly felt about this plant and how it made me feel about myself. Growing up during the war on drugs, I mean, that was hard. And then being a teacher, having to hide it and hiding it for so many years, and now coming out with it and just feeling all those feelings was overwhelming. It was hard and worth it. I'm not going to say it wasn't worth it. Hard things are always worth it. I mean, you don't grow without some pain, right? Um, but yeah, it was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah. It's truly intriguing to hear out about your process. How do you see courage in cannabis contributing to the broader conversation surrounding cannabis culture and legalization?
I think there are so many wonderful and broad range stories in both of the Courage and Cannabis volumes
Hmm.
that it contributes overall to the cause. And the causes and the stigma bring about federal legalization, not just statewide, not just some medical here, not some rec there, but bring about not just a level 3, but true legalization. Um, so I think that's what Courage and Cannabis is doing. And the more people who have the courage to tell their stories, the
Hmm.
more acceptable it's going to be. So just keep it rolling. I want to read like volume 20 down the road, you know?
Absolutely. That sounds like a great idea. Yes. Wow. Yes, I'm looking forward to that myself. We're about to release some special promotions that we're doing, and
Okay.
definitely book 3 will be coming along real quick. So
Okay.
stay tuned. I don't know about 20, but
Well, hopefully
Bridget
it
might.
doesn't take hopefully it doesn't take 20 to get the message out there, but if it takes 20,
Yeah,
then
no,
it's going to take
definitely.
20, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yes, and because every story is so different,
Yeah.
and I feel it touches everyone in a different way. My story, your story. Someone may not connect to mine, but they may connect to yours. There's a
Mhm.
lot of educators out there that could use, cannabis. I feel like I would feel more safe, teachers using cannabis or cannabinoids, because
Right.
of all the medications like Xanax and, all those type of medications that they're
Right.
prescribing to our educators.
Had
And
I been at school that day, and had I been on a prescribed Percocet, Xanax, Clonopin, I mean, you name it. I
you
don't
name
even
it.
know all
Mhm.
the pain pills anymore. Vicodin,
Right.
Oxycontin, is that still a
Oxycodone, yeah.
thing? I don't know.
Norco, yeah.
But if I had been on any of those, it would have
Hmm.
been A-okay. If they had found my prescription bottle, it would have
Oh
been,
yeah.
oh, maybe you should put that where the kids can't see it.
Oh yeah. Just a little slap in the hand.
Yeah, it's teacher that my attorney had worked with had just came to school, hit a parked car drunk,
Oh my goodness. And that was okay.
and it was okay. She was back at school the next week.
Oh my goodness. That's insane. It's just unacceptable. You know,
And I
what
had a,
what type
yeah,
of example does that set for our kids, our
right,
school kids?
Right. It makes me just want to cry. It's unbelievable. And these are the people teaching our kids, but the message I heard was, you're not okay. You're not acceptable, you
Wow.
know?
Yeah.
And I just want to,
Hmm. And that was your medicine,
yeah, for
that's
doing what I know is right. I mean, it's a plant.
yeah.
It's not addicting. It hits, I mean, does it take away all of my pain? No. Does it make my life manageable? Absolutely.
Yes.
And
I
I'll live with
agree.
a manageable life,
Right. Yes, definitely. And it
you know?
and definitely a healthier lifestyle for you. And
Yes,
being
for
on all
sure.
those medications, and you know how it is
Hmm.
with having the type of conditions you have. One
Right.
thing leads to another, and the diagnoses keep, adding, as well as the pharmaceuticals. Just
Hmm.
keeps climbing and climbing.
Yeah. At
It's just
one
so
point,
common nowadays, and
right.
it shouldn't be, cannabis shouldn't be our last resort. That should be
At
our
one
first
point,
resort.
I was on 9 different medications every
Hmm.
day.
Hmm.
And when I got sober from alcohol, I went to detox. I went to treatment.
Hmm.
It was a detox treatment facility, and I spent 40 some odd days in there and haven't had a drink since. Anyway, I detoxed off of all those medications. And when I came home, I waited 2 months before I started experimenting with cannabis. So it's like, well, am I going to have addictive behaviors towards it?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know? And I tested myself. So I didn't smoke for another month. That was
Hmm.
fine. I didn't obsess about it. And that's kind of where my journey began. And I don't think I'd be where I am in my sobriety without it either. And I think just that needs to be recognized for a lot of people, that this Cali sober is just fine.
Right. So would you say that the cannabis helped with your alcohol addiction?
Absolutely.
Yes, I've heard that. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I brought that
Yeah.
question up, because our guests do need to know, it does help
I
with
mean,
addiction.
I will say the number one thing that helped me was God.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
but
definitely.
but God also put cannabis in my life for a reason. So there you go. And no, I haven't had a craving for alcohol in almost 7 years. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. What do
Yeah.
you hope to see in volume 3 of Courage and Cannabis?
Oh man, what hasn't been in there already? It kind of, I don't know, just more inspiring stories. What can you really hope for? I love that it's not, I love seeing the famous people sprinkled in, the ones that kind of draw people in. So that's always fun and interesting. But I appreciate that the stories are from everyday people living their everyday cannabis lives. And I love reading those. So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't know.
What would your health story be without cannabis?
Um, I was thinking about this question before the podcast, and I'm not sure I'd be alive without cannabis, if I were being 100% honest. I probably would have drank myself to death, or gotten addicted to pain pills and somehow ended up overdosing. That's probably what
Yeah,
would have happened. So I think cannabis for my life. Yeah.
that's right. Yes, definitely. And just I wanted to ask you something, because I know we have very similar uh, illnesses, and so with
Hmm.
cannabis saving your life, because I know it how I feel, but is the plant do you feel spiritual about the plant? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, as far as just because your story is just freaking amazing, very inspirational, because I know educators out there, and I know, I couldn't be an educator. So thank you for all you did for the kids. But
Oh, well,
with
thanks.
cannabis saving your life, and you getting this far, and dealt with everything that you dealt with, how do you connect with the plant in other ways besides consuming it? Is it spiritual to you, or
I'd absolutely say it's a spiritual type experience. The plant, I've been connected to the plant. Um, my mom consumed cannabis when she was pregnant with me. She would breastfeed me after smoking a doobie. Cannabis was grown in my home and around me. It was always around. So I've always felt a connection, and I've always felt lost when it wasn't around me.
Mm-hmm.
And without my connection with God, and I just said, God put the plant here. And when I talk about God, it's maybe not the religious God that some of you may be hearing. My God is an all-encompassing God, and the one of the Bible. I have a mixed up, weird concept of God. That's another story. But so he put the plant here, so I know that when I'm consuming that plant, all of the properties that he put in there, the terpenes, the cannabinoids, the flavonoids, everything that's in there, he put in there for a reason. So I kind of thank him for it, and experience my medicine. And yeah, and I thank him for it, because without it, I wouldn't be here. So, I mean, do I go this deep every time I medicate? Absolutely not. But normally my nightly ritual and my morning ritual, my first time in the morning and my last time before I go to bed is kind of when I'm really connecting spiritually with the plant. And I'm a whole plant medicine kind of gal, so I really experience the full spectrum of the plant when I medicate. So
Awesome. That's awesome. Are you working to get your teaching license back, or where do you stand as far as teaching?
if you read my story, you'll see like all the hoops I have to jump through to get my teaching license back. My expiration is up at the end of this year. Um, Part of me wants to be spiteful and be like, I'm going to get you back, and do all the things they want me to do and take it back and, get it back and go back in. There's another part of me that's seeing the state that education is in right now. And I'm not sure the classroom's right for me, but I do believe the school setting's right for me. So I've looked into maybe becoming a parapro or work in the cafeteria, something like that, to add on to all the retirement years that I already have
Mhm.
and get the
Have you ever
insurance
thought
back.
of educating? Have you ever thought of educating the school systems?
I've thought about it. I don't know where to start. And I feel, see, this is that inadequacy thing, is I feel like I'm underqualified. Like nobody would take me seriously.
Right. So if any of our audience is out there listening and they need any help educating the school system,
I
reach
mean, I'd
out to
love to write a
Kathy.
program for it. I would. I mean, I'd be like, ooh, lesson plan. Woohoo. I could put together some slides, and it's a
Yeah,
teacher coming out in me.
you're
I'm
more than
like,
qualified.
yeah. But yeah.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, so and that's what we need, more people, more not only, just users, we need everyone in every aspect of our, educators. Like,
Yeah.
now we see more and more nurses, more and more doctors coming out. So that's what's building our community. And I feel that, we together, it's going to take a village. So with us bringing out the stories and
Mm-hmm.
doing these podcast interviews, and hopefully more people come out and see the goodness that, you know, people that use cannabis have. Maybe, like, for
Right.
example, yourself, you're not, you know, educating anymore, as far as, and that, I'm sure that was your passion as well.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
hoping to be able to, put word out there and help people, empower everyone to keep
And
moving
this might
forward.
sound, but you mentioned we have some similar illnesses. I have Hashimoto's, I have fibromyalgia, I have PTSD, and I'm in full blown menopause, just for a sprinkle of fun. Um, so with all of those, I do work 40 hours a week. I'm tired. I'm so tired. And I know that sounds like
Yeah.
an excuse, but hit me up on a Saturday. I would love to do something on a Saturday,
Hmm.
but I really can't Monday through Friday right now. So I mean, I took a huge loss financially losing my job
Mhm.
or losing my career, not just my job, my career. I have a job now, but you know, but you still got to pay the bills. I don't know. It's tough. I want to do what I can. I'm not trying to say I don't. It's just, it's really hard sometimes living in this
Right.
body and trying to do it all.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
it's the dare system damaging.
Do you know how many dare lessons I've sat through in my life? Not just as a
Yeah.
teacher, but as a student in the dare system.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think there are good parts to dare. The parts
Mhm.
that don't involve uh, drugs. I don't know how else to say that. I mean, they talk about
Mhm.
friendship and they talk about bullying. They talk about alcohol abuse and what it looks like. They talk about, did I already say smoking?
No.
Cigarettes. Okay, so they talk about smoking cigarettes and how that's bad and harmful. And that's
Mhm.
true. Those messages need to get out there. But then they start lying.
Yeah.
And
Definitely. That must be the cannabis part.
yes. And I noticed that as a child. Like I said, I grew up with cannabis. So
Mhm.
I remember going to the Dare display in eighth grade because they brought out all the big guns and they had, the equipment and real product and I'm looking at this stuff and I'm
Mhm.
going, no, no, I've seen all this in real life. I know people who use this
Right.
every day. This is not what it looks like. This is not really how it's used. This isn't how people act. I know you're lying to me,
Mhm.
so it was hard for me to believe anything they
Mhm.
had to say at that point.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, there are parts of the program today, or at least the last time I sat in a DARE class, which I think was in 2019, that are good, but
Yes, the reefer madness still exists.
absolutely. I've been advised at my work to not, talk about cannabis.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's my medicine. Everybody else is like, oh man, I'm getting hammered tonight. And oh, I'm definitely going home and drinking some shots. And oh, I drank a bottle of wine last night. And I'm like, yeah, I did a couple of fat bong rips. Watched some carpet cleaning on TikTok. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. But I'm not allowed to say that
Right. That's
because,
crazy.
ooh,
Yeah.
it's
Oh yeah.
taboo. Don't talk about it. But I kind of work in an old school company too, where old mindsets and so yeah, it still exists out there.
Oh yeah.
That, yeah, it's
What things are you working on outside of the book at this time?
well, right now we're in the process of building me a she shed. Uh, so
Ooh, nice.
so I can write. I've been inspired by Courage and Cannabis to write my full story.
I love it.
So
Great.
I've
That's
I've
awesome.
started outlining it,
Right.
and I need a quiet place to write. Yeah.
Oh,
So that's kind of what
definitely.
I'm working on right now. And
Nice. We
gardening.
can't wait to follow. We can't wait to follow up on that. Well, as we wrap up, what message or takeaway do you hope readers will gain from Courage and Cannabis?
That the more people who have the courage to talk about cannabis, the more widely accepted cannabis is going to be.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Because it's a daily courage we live with, as we're
Yeah.
using the plant.
Yeah. I mean, for years, I was terrified to even say, yes, I smoke weed. I mean, like I wouldn't tell anyone, just like, oh, those weed smokers. Hee hee. Oh, I smell it. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to be out of the closet and being brave and courageous and talking about my story and not feeling the shame and guilt. And if
Yeah.
you're out there feeling shame and guilt, stop, please. Stop. It's not worth it. Tell your
Yeah.
story.
No,
It
definitely.
needs to be heard. I mean, what's worse that's going to happen? You're going to lose your career?
Yeah. Well, Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us today. Before we go, where can our listeners find out more about you and connect with you online to follow up on that book of yours?
You can find me on Instagram at the Toking Teacher and send me a request, and I will accept you. Ask any
Thank
questions
you.
you want. I
Wonderful.
am an open book.
Wonderful. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on the episode of Courage and Cannabis, the author's stories. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Stay tuned for more captivating conversations with authors sharing their courage in cannabis. To learn more about Courage and Cannabis, go to thecourageandcannabis.com and you can purchase the books on Amazon. Until next time, happy reading.